due to the nature of this program. Listener aggression is advised.
Hey, I'm Carla. I'm Heidi.
And we're the Butcher Baby.
This is Charlie Scene.
Yo, what's up? This is AJ from Fire from the Gods.
This is Rich Ward, the Duke of Metal from Fozzy.
Saddam Leader from In Search of Sun.
This is Beefcake the Mighty from Guam.
And Postulus Maximus.
Ahoy, this is Chris from Maelstrom.
Yo, what's up? This is J-Dog from Hollywood Undead.
Hi, this is Ash Costello from New Year's Day.
This is Tommy Vex from the Bad Wolves.
This is Joe from Dead.
Brutality!
And I'll tell you now to stay fucking metal, yeah!
This is Matt from Hbheirsofisildur, and you're listening to Honest Brutality.
Hey everybody, welcome to Honest Brutality. This is Camera Rebel, and I am sitting here with my two partners. I have Big Sloppy.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, you know a lot. And Mr. Evil Irk.
Hey, partner number 2, right here. Right here.
Hey, you're always number 2 in my book.
That's right, brother. That's right.
And on the phone, we have the talented mastermind behind the Heirs of Isildur, Mr. Matt Knowles. Hey, Matt.
Hey, what's going on? So before we even continue, you've already confused me a little bit because you said you have 2 partners. What are we talking about here?
I'm sorry. I have 3 partners, 2 sitting here and 1 on the line. There you go.
Whoa.
Now he's even more confused.
Over now. I can't even do it now.
Oh, my gosh. Well, welcome onto the show, Matt. We are really excited about some of the things that you got going on here with Heirs of Isildur.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to join you guys on this extended podcast that you guys do. I think it's very cool. From the very first time I heard it, I was like, man, that'd be cool one of these days to be able to get on one of those things. And so I'm glad that now it's finally happening.
Absolutely.
You've arrived,
here you
man.
are.
You've arrived.
You finally made it.
That's right. It's all downhill from here.
No way, sir.
If you only knew.
It is all uphill.
Unlike a lot of the other artists that we deal with, and I don't mean this in a negative sense, but a lot of the times we don't get a chance to really develop a relationship with those artists, like a long-term relationship. We talk to them, we do the show with them, and we touch bases here and there. But with you, you've been kind of a constant in our camp for a while now, and we've been collaborating, working, and watching you build this creation, which isn't just an album, but much more. So thank you for allowing us to be part of that journey, Matt.
Oh, without a doubt. I appreciate you guys being a part of that as well. One of the things that I learned a while back is that I think that there's too many, and it's not just in music, but I feel like there's too many people that set their sights on, I have to get to this amazing high goal. I have to get signed on a major label. I have to go tour in front of 10,000 people every night. And I think people miss the boat when they set their goals that high. To me, it's all about journey. It's all about a journey with checkpoints along the way. Every person you meet, every conversation you have, to me is one of those checkpoints. And I would much rather focus on those things, focus on, meeting people, connecting with people, and just letting all that other stuff kind of take care of itself along the way. Because, in the end, I would rather, deal with 10, 20 people that actually really care about me and care about the project than be in front of 10,000 people that as soon as you get away from them, they don't even know who you are and they don't even care about who you are. And that's just not me. I like to be able to connect with people. And so that's why I am the kind of person that's around a lot and engage with people, because I want people to engage with me as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
For the record, I'm married. We're not getting engaged, buddy.
Damn it. We're done. Interview over.
Check it out. You've been in the industry for quite some time now. So before we get into the Heirs project, let's hear a little bit of history on you and what you've done in the music community.
Sure. So I started playing music when I was in high school. I'll take you way, way back. So, a friend of mine, a buddy of mine in high school named Steve Cataldo, he and I, were really good friends, and, we got into a big fight, and, we then did the whole, high school, we're going to make up and be best buds again. And he had always played bass. And he's like, man, we need to start a band. And good. Okay. Now what am I going to do? I guess I need to learn to play an instrument since I'm in a band now. So we decided that's absolutely exactly how it went down. I promise.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I love it.
So decided I was going to play guitar, and we put together a band. I would say this: we weren't very good, and a lot of people that liked what we were doing. And I look back today, and it was just, the stuff was just terrible. And it's nothing about any of the people that were in the band. We just weren't very skilled musicians, weren't very good writers. And it was also in a period of time when a lot of lyrics in the industry were insanely cheesy. You look at late 80s, early 90s, Satanic Panic, it was, everybody was, you had to have lyrics that were just so over the top, no matter what you believed, no matter what you were into. And I look back at all the lyrics from that era, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is so dumb. It was like, just look at a band like Striper.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You just called out Sloppy's favorite.
Striper has some songs, and they were decent back in the day. But if you look at the lyrical content and the way it was delivered, not the spirit behind it, but the way it was delivered is just so cheesy.
I can't deny you're dead nuts on that. It's very true. It's very true.
That was where it started, was way back in the day. And then that band broke up, and got together with some guys that we wanted to do more of a death metal band. This is back when the big four of Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer were really hitting the scene really hard. So it's a little bit after that time we decided we wanted to do a more of a death metal style band. And we just started like, hey, you know what? We want to, we really want to have a name that's really cool. And so we kept the name Royal Anguish, which was the name that my band from high school had. And if I knew then what I know now, and the constant confusion about the high school band and the death metal band, and people being like, oh man, I got to shoot this awesome demo from Royal Anguish. And I'm like, no, dude, that's a different band. And I don't want to remember that stuff because it's just so cheesy. But that was my own fault. We stuck with the name Royal Anguish, and I had that thing for quite a while. We were on a label out of Fort Lauderdale named ART Records. And the only reason I bring that up is because, along the way, there's crazy checkpoints, crazy people you meet. And one of the bands that was on that label was Non-Point Factor, which is the band you now know of as Non-Point. Yeah. And when we lived there, we actually were some of the first friends that the guys from Non-Point Factor had when they moved from Puerto Rico to Florida. And one of the conversations we had with them back then, which was absolutely hilarious, was they were floored about, hey, if you go to a Miami Dolphins game, you go to a stadium and you get a ticket and you go and sit down and then you get up to go to the bathroom, you're saying that you come back and your seat's still going to be there? They had no understanding. They were completely floored by the fact that you could actually own a seat for that game, and it was your seat. Nobody else was allowed to sit there because that was a foreign concept based on where they had come from in Puerto Rico.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting.
I knew that those guys came from Florida, but I didn't even think about the fact that you might know them. That's really neat. I actually love that band.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember some of the very first shows they played in Florida. We played with them back in the day. I remember playing, really small little dives when, the only person that's in the band now, that was in the band then is the drummer Rob. But I remember, going to play little dive bars with Non-Point Factor back then. And, then we went to record an album, The Chronicles of Autumn Sorrow. And the engineer we had then was actually named Chris Rutherford. And that may not be a name that people know very much about nowadays, but Chris Rutherford actually had his gold record from Anthrax's I Am the Man hanging on the wall. So that was kind of cool, but also kind of intimidating at the same time when you're in the studio recording and you've got a guy that sold 500,000 copies of a record, working the board with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if he was really good, it would have been a platinum album, but I digress.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't want to get, too deep into that really far old historic part of Royal Anguish, but that album sat on the shelf for a long time. There was a lot of financial issues, a lot of things that had happened with the band back then. One of the before we started recording that album, the guitar player almost died in a accident, a car accident where there was an explosion, gasoline, all that kind of stuff. I actually had to save the guy's life.
Wow.
It was definitely one of those seminal moment things that happened in my life, where I can, go back, 20 some years when that happened. I remember like it was just yesterday, but the guy was there trying to prime a carburetor on a car, and They did that. Hey, we'll go give it one last try. And I was like, forget it, man. Well, I'm just going to go out to the van. You know, the other van we had, we were out on playing some shows out of town. And I'm like, I'll go out to the van and I'll just move some stuff around so we can fit everybody and we'll come back and pick this car up later. Well, I'm in the van and I hear a pop and a scream and I look out the windshield and, you know, there goes the guitar player running by screaming, you know, like a chicken with his head cut off. And I guess what had happened was he'd gone to pour gasoline in the engine. They clicked the key, engine backfired, flames shot out of the engine, exploded the can of gas or the jar of gas in his hand and caught him on fire right there. And
wow.
You know, your brain operates really quick at that time. I had a conversation with myself saying, hey, you know what? There just went a flame that ran by with Brian's clothes on it. You know, you need to go jump out of the van and you need to go save his life. And then I had the conversation in my head. Do you want to use your pillow or do you want to use your buddy's pillow? And I mean, your brain goes. I mean, I remember it was like time stood still, and I had this conversation. And it took about 1/2 a second to do it, but you know, ran out of the car, and you know, next thing I knew, you know, they had I knocked the flames out. Next thing you know, there's a medical helicopter landed in the parking lot right near, and they're cutting his clothes off right in front of me so that he can, you know, they can go deal with them. And you know, he was in the burn unit in Tampa General Hospital for you know, a few weeks because it was that bad. But that really changed up the recording process before we went in for that album. He had quit right before then. We got another guitar player that came in. And then that thing just sat on the shelf for quite a long time. It was about 95 when that thing was recorded, and I had some personal issues, moved from South Florida to Central Florida, and, you know, geography of Florida is kind of like California, where when you talk about going from South to Central, you're talking about going quite a long distance to go from, you know, so you're talking 5 hours at that time. The band basically fell apart at that time, and you know, the stuff just sat on the shelf. Nothing was released. You know, it took us like a year to even get, you know, demo copies of those tracks out of the studio, and it just sat there. It took till it was about 97. I had basically given up on playing music. I had a soured relationship, and just did not want to play any music anymore. And then when my ex-wife and I broke up, apartment floor going, hey, well, who are you? What do you want to do with yourself? And I was like, man, I want to play some more music. And I'm like, man, it's been too long since I played music. So I, you know, jumped into that. And about 2000, I had hooked up with a drummer named Anthony Smith. And he and I were just getting ready to start to write some songs together for the album Mysterion by Royal Anguish. And he got into a really bad car accident.
What is with you and your friends in car accidents? Your bandmates.
I'm telling you, I don't know, but one of the best things of this whole situation, and Anthony will even admit it to you today, he was hit badly. He was like really in, you know, physical dire straits and had to go through like traction and physical therapy and all that. And part of the way that he actually got himself back on his feet was he set up his drum kit right beside his bed. And he would crawl out of bed and crawl onto the drum stool, and he started learning Royal Anguish.
Wow.
Physical strength back so he could actually start walking again.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was
music therapy right there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Darn right. So started writing the Mysterion album, and got hooked up with a record label in Gainesville. It was Sounds of the Dead Records, and after we recorded that, he wanted to do a release of that album, and he also did a Christmas album. I want to have a bunch of bands do just traditional Christmas songs, you know, not like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like, you know, church kind of traditional songs. And so we're sure, we'll do one. And we did Mary Did You Know? And it's funny because you go look out there online, and that one's got more listens than anything that Royal Anguish ever put out. You know, that song comes around every single year. You know, even this year, I guarantee you, I'll push it myself. Every year, somebody goes out there and they want to, you know, start playing Mary Did You Know around Christmas time because it was one of the key songs on that compilation album that he put out. But Dead actually re-released, or did the only release of, no, I take that back, one Sounds of the Dead. It was a label out of Texas. They said, hey, we want to release Chronicles of Autumn Sorrow. So after all these years, there's finally a release of that. You know, then go on from there. Royal Anguish actually signed to a label out of Holland, Fear Dark, and they released. We had recorded an EP with Eric Rattan of Hate Eternal at his studio in Tampa, Florida, and called Tales with Sullen Eyes. And we did an independent release on that, but then Fear Dark decided they wanted to do a release of that as well. And then we also released A Journey Through the Shadows of Time on Fear Dark. And after that, that was when things started to kind of fall apart when it came to the Royal Anguish side. The bass player at the time, and I've told you guys before, the bass player in Royal Anguish at the time was Sean Tibbetts, who is the current bass player for Camelot. Sean's still a very good friend of mine. Sean and I still talk quite a bit. Sean and I, we were on that tour. Really?
Oh,
really?
Dude, I love Camelot. Absolutely love that band.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you something else about Camelot here in a second that is actually pretty cool. So, Sean was the original bass player in Camelot. He was the original bass player in Camelot, and then some stuff happened there, and he, was no longer in Camelot, and he joined other bands, Wicked Witch he was in, and then he was in Royal Anguish with me, and that was by far the best time for Royal Anguish. We did one tour Europe, and that tour we were on was the very first tour that Hbheirsofisildur ever did, which is probably the biggest folk metal band in the world right now. We were the first Americans they ever met face to face.
Who was this?
Americans, Hbheirsofisildur members. Hbheirsofisildur, who is the biggest folk metal band in the world.
I'm not familiar. I got to check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll shoot you guys some stuff after we do this interview, man. They are absolutely astonishing as far as I'm concerned. But we had a really good relationship with them back in the day. One of the cool things, and here's the other thing I was going to tell you about Camelot, one of the cool things about the relationship that Sean had with Camelot was that while Royal Anguish was kind of in their peak time, Sean started to regain a relationship with Camelot at that time. So Royal Anguish was able to open for Camelot quite a few times.
Oh.
And we were at one of the first time we went to open for Camelot. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the song March of Mephisto, but that was one of the songs that really, March of Mephisto pushed them, into the mainstream consciousness.
Yeah.
Well,
that's on the Black
Shagrath
Halo album, which is my favorite album by those guys.
Well, Shagrath from Dimmu Borgir did a guest spot on the album and the video for that song.
Yep.
So we have just finished opening for Camelot, and there was two other bands, I believe, before Camelot played. And Tom from Camelot says, "Hey, we need somebody to do Shagrath's part with us on stage tonight.
Oh my
Matt,
God.
What do you think about jumping on stage and doing Shagrath's part for me?" He's like, "Are you familiar with the song March of Mephisto?" First, I completely lied and said, "Oh yeah, I'm totally familiar with the song."
Attaboy.
Second, I absolutely got finished crapping my pants. Then I was like, "Sure, I'll do it." So he's like, cool. So when it's about to go on, this is what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. And, we'll be ready to go. So as soon as he walked inside, I jumped in my van, and I probably listened to that song 50 times, learning the song, learning the lyrics. So I'm like, dude, I've never heard this thing before. I got to go jump on stage and do this part. Sure enough, got to jump on stage with Camelot and do a guest spot with them at that show. And the energy from being in my band, being on stage, being a not international band, to jumping on stage at the same venue with Camelot, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. It was unbelievable seeing people from the stage all the way to the very back door all pumping their fists in unison. It was just an amazing experience.
Oh, that's rad.
Cool, man.
Very good.
Well, after that tour that Royal Anguish played, things kind of, we did some stuff. We had recorded another album, which is called The Grand Deception. We were in the process of recording The Grand Deception. We had a lot of membership turnover. There was a split between a few of the members went and formed another band, and the rest of us went a different direction. And we had some really good material, really strong material written, and we had a lot of interest out there in the market. The problem was this was at the time when labels weren't understanding how to capitalize on the digital music phenomenon.
Right.
Everything was based on physical album sales at that time. So, we'd have labels, that would contact us. "Hey, we're interested in you." Some from America, some from foreign. And we'd be like, "Hey, let's talk to you." And next thing you know, we don't hear from them for a month. Then we see a press release saying that label was swallowed up, merged with some other label. We had Tom from Camelot that was out there putting our press packs in people's hands. and saying, you need to sign these guys. And things just weren't happening. And we ended up releasing a few of the songs from that album. We had done 3 of the songs. We had 3 of them finished and put online. And then at that point, things just started to fizzle a little bit because those of us that were left in the band all wanted to go in different directions, in a sense. Not different directions from the music, but different directions as in, need to make sure we have a label budget before we finish this album, or we need to make sure we have a management company, or, we just need to make sure that we're actually, I just want to get the thing done, and let's kind of go from there. And it got to a point where we were kind of at a stalemate, and we just kind of let things fizzle there. Sean actually, at that same time, was able to get an opportunity to fill in on bass for Camelot, which turned into him having the full-time gig again. And in my life, I just got tired of the constant bad business decisions that being in the music scene kind of made you make. A lot of bad financial decisions. I know a lot of the bands you talk about how, pay to play, and, they want you to drive to different places and go play for basically nothing. And I just couldn't do that anymore. So I kind of allowed music to fizzle out in my life. And it took years. I would tell people for the first time in my life that I was, I was a musician that was on indefinite hiatus. I would go to shows, and for the first time in my life, I'm like, hey, I'm just a fan. And I really started to kind of remove myself from being a part of the industry at all. But there was always a little voice in the back of my head that was like, dude, you're not done. You're not done. You're not done. I didn't know how I was going to be getting myself back into it. But, but like I said, that's the history. And I'll kind of stop for there because I've been talking for a while, but
no, that's okay.
Kind of the history.
It's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so here's a little voice, dude, you're not done. And one day that voice says something different. And what was that?
Well, that's a good question. So that was, late, 2008, 2009, 2010, that was going on. In 2012, I was going to, I tried to get Hbheirsofisildur off the ground with Corey Steger, who actually is on the album now. And he and I both had kind of similar experiences. He was in Under Oath. He was one of the founding members of Under Oath, and they're huge, and they were huge, and they are huge. But he kind of became disenchanted with the whole music scene as well. And, we just kind of, we would do stuff. He recorded on Mysterion with me back in the early 2000s. We always had a really good chemistry, really good rapport. We were going to try to get in 2000, and we both had a big push of energy to try and do something. But as quick as that spark came, the spark fizzled out. We both were just like, yeah, this is not the right time. We knew it wasn't the right time to do things. Bits here and there, and I would always just catalog the stuff that I'd written and just for fun of it. But even there was also times where I would go a year without doing anything. I would physically pick up my guitar and I'd just feel physically sick. I'm like, nope, I don't need to be doing this. This is not the thing to do. And then it just started to get a little bit more and a little bit more where I could tell that, it felt like something was starting to break in me a little bit. And then I had a really interesting experience that became I would say the straw that broke the camel's back, but it's more like the cinder block that broke the camel's back.
Bam.
I know you guys know, but your listeners may not know, but I'm also a soccer official. I've repped thousands upon thousands of soccer games in my life. And every year between Christmas and New Year's, there's a national girls tournament that happens close to where I live. And I go and rep that thing every year. And because of the distance that it is to it, all the referees get put up in hotel rooms. But the way that they work that is they let all the teams from all over the country come in, and they say, okay, we've got these 50 hotels that people are staying at. And it looks like we have 3 rooms left at this hotel. There's 2 rooms left here. And there's 1 room left here. Okay, well, we're going to go stick a few referees at these 2 rooms here and a few referees in these hotels here. And okay, we have a couple of hotel rooms. It's 45 minutes away. And Matt, you and this other guy are going to get stuck up here at this hotel that's 45 minutes away from the soccer tournament. So we were glad we had a room, but it kind of sucked that we were so far away from everything. It was basically you go and ref in the day, and then by the time you got back to your hotel room, you didn't want to do anything else but just lay there. Luckily, the guy I was rooming with, we found out we had a lot in common. Not only did we both go to the exact same high school in South Florida, which we thought was pretty amazing, is you're going to get 2 random referees that are both graduates, both alumni from the same high school. but I found out that this guy was also probably one of the most talented concert pianists I've ever heard in my life. I mean, just the guy's like a complete savant. His name is Ross Noble. Complete savant on the keys. Just amazing. Like, you think about the fastest guitar player that you know, that just rips up and down on the neck. That's how he is on the keyboards. And so he and I got really bored just being in our room. We just started showing off little clips of stuff. Hey, here's something on YouTube of, some stuff that I've done. And, I'd take a turn, he'd take a turn. And I'm like, 2012, by the way, this is taking place in December 2015. 2012, I'm like, I wrote these, here's some demo tracks and stuff that I wrote. I was going to try and get a project off the ground then. And I explained to him the lyrics and played him some of the music. And while we're sitting there, I was kind of just voicing the lyrics to him over one of the songs, and got to a certain point in the song, and he literally put his hand up and he's like, dude, just roll that back for a minute. What did you just say, man? He's like, dude, that is some powerful stuff, man. Holy crap. And he just completely lost it on how impactful it was to him, the lyrics that were on top of the song. And as soon as he did that, I called my wife and I was like, yep, like, I think now is the time to jump back in. I just had this guy who's a pretty amazing musician that just really was just like, not even a metal musician, not anything, was just completely blown away by some of the stuff that I'd written. And I always had that voice in the back of my head that was like, you didn't write all these things, to have them just sitting in a notepad on your computer. And when he reacted like that, I'm like, yep. And ever since that time, that was when I started to actually piece Heirs together. And the Heirs that now started origins in that hotel room at that soccer tournament.
Yeah, he gave you motivation for sure. So now you have released your number 1 and number 2 issues of the comic.
Correct. Yes.
And the CD as well.
Yep. And it didn't actually start off that I was going to do a comic and a story.
Right.
It was just going to be.
I remember.
It was just I just started writing a couple of songs, and I put this new recording setup together, and I treated it as if I knew nothing. I'm like, I'm going to just start from scratch as far as programs go, as far as instruments go. I got all new instruments other than one thing. I got all new programs, everything. I'm just like, I'm going to treat it like I'm just going from the ground up. So I'm starting with a brand new education, just started writing some songs, and I'm like, hey, it's going to be called the Crossroads EP. Don't know how many songs it's going to be, going to do this. And I want to have a steampunk look. And that was basically all I knew. And that was all it really was. I didn't have any intention of writing a big, long story. Didn't have any intention of writing comics. I just wanted to write. And, I always just would keep notes of the things I wanted to do. And the next thing you know, it's not an EP anymore. It was a short album. And then the next thing you know, it's a 12-track album. And the next thing you know, it went from being a couple hundred words of a concept to, 1,000 words to 10,000 words to 50,000 words. And here we are.
And when we first met, you were working on the music and you were actually writing what was at that point in time, the ebook. And
yes.
And since then, you went to a Comic-Con and came up with the idea to do the comic. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad that you decided to go that route because it's absolutely brilliant. The art in it is beautiful. It's a fun read, and it's definitely leaves the person reading it, curious about the next issue.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I always wanted to do something more graphical than just an ebook. Like, I was going to have the ebook, but then I was going to have, just kind of like screensaver. Here's going to be the screensaver version of the book where you can have some art alongside of it. And, you're also going to have the text. And I had actually come to an agreement with the artist, Blake Wilkie, who's the one who's doing the comics, in late January, early February of 2017. And when we started, like, I knew what I wanted art-wise, and, he was just going along, just kind of going with the flow, creating the art and whatnot. But we didn't really know what the heck we were creating it for. So, I mean, we were doing it, but we had no idea what the delivery method of it was going to be. How do you deliver? And what am I going to do? Is deliver a PDF of text and pictures to people? I mean,
right.
Didn't really have much of a clue. Like you said, then I went and worked at the Comic-Con and was the PA announcer at the Comic-Con that year. And I was like, yep, I need to go ahead and turn this ebook into, some comic book issues. I mean, like we said earlier in this conversation before we started, I'm not a big book reader. It's just something that doesn't really work well with my mind. I just get very distracted and
Imagine that.
not really focused. Yeah. I need to have more things going on. And so I thought it'd be a better read, more fun for everybody to have the comic issues. It also made the story become a lot better because every small section I had to have a good plot point and a good reveal and a good cliffhanger.
Right.
11 times in the story now instead of just maybe this one big long, World of Worlds kind of, nonsensically long thing.
So now why don't you tell the listeners what you've done with the comic as well as the CD and how you've kind of crossed them on the platforms?
Absolutely. So a lot of the songs on the album originally came from some real life stories, real life experiences that either I experienced or other people around me experienced. And I still respect and revere the real life experiences that happened there, but I wanted those things to actually embody characters that were going to be in the story. So for instance, you've got a song like, Murky Waters, which is actually the one that I had played for Ross Noble in the hotel room at that soccer tournament. Murky Waters is a true story about a friend of mine that was about to commit suicide, and me unknowingly reaching out to her at a time of need. I found out later on that she said, if you wouldn't have reached out to me at the time you did, I would have killed myself that night. She's like, I already knew what I was going to do. I was going to hang myself in the garage. And if you wouldn't have reached out to me the time you did right then, I would have been dead that night. And so there's a real life story behind the song Murky Waters, but I wanted there to be characters in the story that were going to embody some of these songs. So the comic issues actually have the storyline itself. The actual storyline of the Crossroads Conundrum is what goes on in the comic issues. But if you take a sidestep, when you get to Murky Waters, if you want to go listen, like the part of the story that's actually going to deal with that, you can go listen to the song and you can get a deeper understanding of this character or the story that is also related to that character. Here's the backstory of this character if you want to know more about what their motivations are, where they came from. Mm-hmm.
It's a really neat project that you've got going on here, and I'm not sure that there are many or any out there who have done what you've done. And, maybe we'll see other musicians out there kind of take note of the ingenious in it and might do something very similar.
It'd be great to see somebody do that. I know that I think in this day and age, one of the biggest problems that musicians have is that back in the day, you knew that people would go and buy CDs and they would fund you with their effort to spend money on your music. And nowadays, you can't just treat the music as the be all and end all, because this is a consumer culture where people believe that music is something that they should just get for free, whether it's listening to it in a streaming service or downloading it pirated. You can't bank on the fact that music itself is going to be what's going to allow you to be able to continue your creative outlet. So that's why I wanted to have more things involved, being able to go to Comic-Cons, create characters, create a universe, have the music and the story both be of equal parts in this universe creation. I didn't want it to just be one or the other. And I feel like I learned a lesson from the WWE, from World Wrestling Entertainment. If you ever watch World Wrestling Entertainment, it doesn't matter what show you watch. They're always promoting the next thing. If you're watching Raw, they're talking about what's going to happen when we get to the pay-per-view. Always promoting that next best thing. When you get to the pay-per-view, what's the fallout going to be and how is that going to impact the next Raw? They're always using that thing that they have to promote the next piece of the product.
Yep.
And I tried to take that lesson here and say, okay, how can I make the music promote the written literature? How can I make that literature go back and promote the album? And I've tried to do that, to try to show people every time, hey, there's something more than just the one thing you have in your hand. I hope you love that thing you have in your hand. I hope that you really enjoy it. But there is another thing that you can go out and get. There is more to this thing that you have in your hand, and hopefully people latch onto that, and hopefully they enjoy it.
Hey, a couple things on that note there, Matt. First of all, I'm not a big comic guy. I'll just come out and say it. I don't know a whole lot about that genre, that way of life. And
that
I guess
world.
That world, yeah. I mean, it's a way of life to a lot of people. And I see the Comic Cons and the people that attend those, and they're really into the things that they read, and they dress up like the characters, and they're way into it.
That's called cosplay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and believe me, I like seeing some of the costumes some of the women put on, and those things are incredible. But anyway, I digress. I would love to go to a Comic-Con someday, just because I think it'd be a fun experience. That, on a few notes here, the comic book angle, you have it's a steampunk kind of theme, and I've not seen you guys live. Are you guys trying to mimic some of that on your on-stage appearance? You guys trying to bring some of the steampunk look with you as you go on stage?
Well, I will say this right now. Right now, I'm not even focusing on the live aspect. I do believe inevitably that there will be something live that will happen. But right now, with the amount of time and the amount of energy it takes to do the promotion for it, to coordinate all the comic issues, I'm focusing all the energy on that right now.
Okay.
But I will say conceptually that the thought is that if it ever does evoke itself in a live scenario, absolutely it would have some kind of steampunk vibe there. And part of the reason why, I mean, there's two reasons why steampunk really resonated with me. One was because I'd done the whole wear black head to toe. I'd done the whole, goth thing. I wanted to just do something different. I wanted to do something that wasn't automatically just screamed right off the bat in the look that, hey, this is metal or this is that. I wanted to just do something that was fun.
Right.
And the other thing about steampunk that really resonated with me was the whole concept of taking something old and repurposing it to make it new.
Right.
And with this vast majority of these songs, when this thing started, there were lyrics that I had written in 2004, lyrics that had been written that weren't even going to be used by Royal Anguish or written at that time. Some stuff lyrically that may have even been that was maybe going to be included on a Royal Anguish album that never got used. Some riffs that may have been written, 5-6 years ago.
Right.
That as I was writing, I'm like, hey man, that concept from back then that never got used, I can go retool those lyrics and I can make that thing work. And oh yeah, man, now I got this brand new thing. So steampunk just really felt like it embodied, whether it was literally or allegorically, the way that this whole project came together. So that was why I was really, really involved in that.
Well, that's a really cool thing. And I thumbed through the comic book, and like I say, it's out of my league. I have no idea what that world is really like. And I know it's huge, ginormous, but there were some characters in there I noticed that were just blew me away, just jumped off the page to me. As I got towards the end of the book, there was these 4 characters. I think it's a gang you have in there. It's called Honest Brutality. In the back of the magazine.
Oh,
they are awesome.
Snap.
Those might have been my favorite characters.
One of them is full of steam.
Yes.
And he's a punk.
I was going to say, sometimes he can be a punk.
Nicely done.
A long way to go for a joke.
Hey, Matt, let's talk for just a little bit real quick here about the actual music itself. Because I got to be completely honest with you and anybody that's listening right now. It's really, really hard for me to describe your sound. If someone asks, it takes me a minute to really sit down and go, well, you see. So, and it's not a bad thing. It's just very unique. So how do you describe the style of music that you've written for this album?
I would definitely say that it's definitely aggressive metal. There are elements of extreme metal. There's elements of power metal. There's elements of like European Finnish melodic metal in there. There's a lot of blast beats. I love blast beats, man. I can't get away from blast beats, man. I just love them.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah,
but I just wait wherever the song wants to take it. So I mean, I don't sit down and say, okay, I've got to go write a song that's got 50% of the drum beats are going to be blasts in there, or I've got to write a song that's got to have, a female vocalist in there, or whatever it may be. I just kind of write and let the song, see how it falls. And I know it almost feels like a cop-out when a musician says, I don't think you can categorize my music, because you can always categorize somebody's music.
Well, yeah, within reason. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, it's definitely it's probably the most aggressive metal that you're going to find that still has a catchy element alongside of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a solid description. I would tend to call it controlled chaos.
That sounds good to me. I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that.
You just barely got a hold on this wild animal.
You got to open your eyes up wide and be like, holy crap, what is this steaming train locomotive that's coming out right
now? I like that.
You've seen a lot, you've done a lot, and you're out there working really hard basically to do an independent release and self-produce this whole thing, and that's very admirable. If there was a young person that was listening and you had advice for them that was wanting to do something similar, what advice would you give them?
I would say that no matter what they want to do, the first thing they need to do is set realistic expectations. They need to say, okay, what's a goal I can have out in the distance? And hey, that's a great thing to have, but what are some other smaller things? What are some mid-level things? What are some very short-term goals that I can actually attain, so that way every day they're not saying, oh, I haven't reached that top of the mountain. I haven't reached the top of the mountain. They need to say, hey, maybe today my goal is to step 3 steps towards the top of the mountain. They get 3 steps there. You need to rejoice in that small victory. The other thing I would say is to make sure that you understand what the word success means to you. I feel like, myself included, and this is a lot of the big problem that I had when I was in Royal Language, is that I allowed other people's version of what success was, and there's nothing wrong with their version of it, but I allowed their version of success to become the thing that I was trying to pursue.
Right.
And everybody's success is going to be something totally different.
Yeah.
There are some people out there that, to them, the only kind of success they're going to have is if they have 1 million likes on their Facebook page. They don't care about anything else. They want to have 1 million likes on their Facebook page. To other people, that's not success at all. You need to find what your version of success is, and you need to work towards that and not allow anyone else, whether it be other musicians, a record label, anybody else, to corrupt your thought of what success is, and you need to just run for it.
Well said.
Including the trolls that are going to try to smash you because you are starting to succeed, or you're working on your way up. There's a lot of
and the
that
other thing too is that understand that any kind of art that you get yourself into has to be treated as if it's your hobby. Has to be treated as if it's your hobby until that art grows to the point that it makes you have to decide, hey, is this going to be part of my actual financial life? When I was playing back in the day, everything we talked about earlier, I always had that misguided thought in my head of, I'm doing this because this is going to become my career. And I made some really bad career decisions elsewhere because I was trying to pursue that music was going to be my life and that was going to be my paycheck. And right now with Airs is definitely not going to be my paycheck. Airs is a hobby. It is something I put a lot of energy and a lot of time into, but I have to earn money and budget for it so that way I can do the things that I want to do. And that way it also keeps the perspective, because I'm not putting that pressure on it to be like, man, I've got to go sell X number of CDs and X number of comics, because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to pay my rent.
Right.
That can't be it at all.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you know what? Your perspective is refreshing, and you're very refreshing. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to?
Well, I would just say, I really hope that people will give the story a chance. I really hope people will give the CD a chance. Try to even create the CD so it'd be a collectible, just like the comic book issues are. The universe that Airs exists in has 2 points to it. My whole goal in it is I want to either have characters that people will relate to, or make a universe that people want to escape into for a time. And if they can do one of those two things or both, then I feel like I've succeeded.
There you have it.
Nice.
That's the biggest thing.
Well, now the most important thing.
Yes.
Even though it's just a hobby, how do you make money on that hobby? How do people find your music? How do they find your comic? Where do they go to get it?
Oh, that's a great segue. You guys should maybe be some radio hosts. I would, to pick up stuff, you're going to go to Hbheirsofisildur.com, which is Heirsofisildur.com, /shop. That's where you've got all the CDs and comics and shirts and different things like that. There is indieplanet.com is carrying the digital versions of the issues. Right now, when this thing drops, there probably is only going to be 2 issues of the story out. There is slated to be 9 more. The story is totally written. It's not like I'm writing this thing as we go or just saying, hey, there's going to be 11 issues. There actually is 11 issues that are written. It's just a matter of getting them created and getting all the art together for them so we can actually get them out there into the world. That's where it's going to be right now, and we'll go from there.
And people can reach out to you and talk to you about your creations and whatever else you got going on. Where?
Absolutely. You can go to the Facebook page. You can message me through the Facebook page, and I try to respond to every person pretty promptly. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me, and we'll just see where it goes as far as that is, as far from there. So
fantastic.
I just really like doing this. I really like the support that you guys have given Heirs of Isildur. I will say that one thing that I do want to share here, which I think is pertinent to the listening audience, is you never know what a little thing that you do can amount to. And Honest Brutality and Heirs of Isildur are a very good example of that, because when the first video for this album dropped, it dropped on March 31st. And it was actually was an accidental drop. What I mean by that is I had the video done. I wasn't sure when I was going to release it. And I was out at Barnes & Noble one night. I was like, oh man, I got to go home, and I got this great idea for the story. And I got to go home and put it into my notes. And when I got home, I was looking at the website, and I realized that at some point the website had accidentally published itself. And I'm like, oh crap, this sucks. I'm like, oh no. So it basically forced me to go and put a release date out there. And I was really nervous about doing that because, it'd been almost a decade since I had physically released anything. And so there was some trepidation about actually, I wasn't just testing the waters with my toe. I was, really kind of nervous about jumping back in, all the way back into the deep end. And so I set the release date as March 31st because I didn't want it to be April 1st. And I released it that night. And the next day I was on Facebook, and there was this pretty cool on-air personality that was up there saying, hey, new bands, you need to send me your videos so I can like it and see what you feel and I think. And I sent a link to the video there, and that on-air personality definitely spent a lot of time talking about the release and talking about the video and how they really liked it and they really wanted to get it on their show. And that turned out to be Camera Rebel. And Camera Rebel was the very first person. Yep. Camera Rebel was the very first person that actually reached out as soon as I released the video. That wasn't somebody I already known. There were people that I knew from, wherever it may have been. But Camera Rebel was the first new person that I did not know previously that actually had reached out. And I think it's pretty cool to say, hey, you go from that point and now we're having a discussion for center stage. You never know what those things can turn into. So you got to revere every conversation you have because you never know what they could turn into.
That's right.
Absolutely. And it's been an honor to be a part of your journey. So thank you so much, Matt. It's awesome.
Well, thank you so much as well for being a part of this journey. not too sloppy.
Hey. No, I get it. I get it, bro.
I'm just kidding.
All right. All right. Thanks again, Matt, so much for being a part of this. Heirs of Isildur, ladies and gentlemen, get out there and check it out. There is all kinds of fun stuff that goes with it, too. Check out the comic. It is worth it. It is worth it. Absolutely worth it. Check it out.
It's worth just getting the pictures of Honest Brutality in the background.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Well, is this shameless plugging here?
Well, ever since Penthouse turned you down for the ad in the back, I know you've been bummed out, buddy. So
the CD is beautiful. The music is amazing. You have posters out there. You have T-shirts out there. So definitely go hit them up.
Tell them Honest Brutality sent you.
Absolutely.
Challenge, rain before me, and my body is hiding, feels